case you didn't see this trial, here's a little case overview if you don't know anything about it. It starts in 2001. 23-year-old Tara Louise Baker was unalived in her apartment in Athens, Georgia. She was a first-year law student at UGA. Lived with her two housemates, Valerie and Ashley, and at the time she had a boyfriend, ? There was conflicting reports about whether or not they were actually together and what the state of their relationship was. Tara worked at a law firm in Athens. She was originally from Lovejoy, Georgia. This happened in January 2001. She had been with a friend studying at the library, and then she went home, and she was the only one home, which was uncommon. There was usually more than one person in the house at any given time. Somewhere between 9:45 p.m. and 11:30-ish a.m. the next day, in that time frame, someone unalived Tara and set fire to her apartment. When first responders got to the scene, they had to break down the front door because it was locked with the deadbolt. They also had to break down her bedroom door because that had been locked as well, and the bathroom that adjoined her room that also had an entry point from the living area that also was locked. When the firefighters got there, they noticed that the stove burners, all four of them, were on, so they turned them off, and then they realised, once they found Tara and they realised it was a crime scene, they went and turned them back on. This kind of crime was not common in this area, and it's fair to say that the police department were not great at handling the investigation because they didn't really have a lot of experience with this kind of thing. There were a few suspects over time, the main one being the boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. There was also some questions about fellow students from her study group and also a lawyer that she worked with. There were a few things that were weird about this case. They didn't issue a death certificate until 10 years later. There's a lot online from the family saying that the communication was terrible and that they messed up the investigation right from the beginning. Over the next 23 years, the case went cold. There was some investigation over that time frame, but they never arrested anybody. Tara's family was always very vocal about trying to find answers. They kept her case in the spotlight a fair bit. The Coleman-Baker Act was passed in 2023. This allowed the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to create a specific cold case investigation unit. So the Coleman-Baker Act was named in part after Tara Baker, and it just so happened that the first case that they managed to solve was Tara Baker. For a case to be reopened under the Coleman-Baker Act, there were certain criteria that had to be met. One of those included there was no viable suspects in the case. For me, it's problematic because in my opinion, there are still viable suspects. In 2024, they retested the DNA. They found DNA from Chris Melton, the ex-boyfriend, another unknown individual, and the person who ended up being convicted in this case, Edrick Faust. What followed was a number of events that seemed to me to not make much sense and didn't seem to be fair given the evidence that they had. The trial was a shit show. The evidence was dodgy. There was mislabeling. There was problems with witnesses, people changing their stories, people having to be coached on what to say, and just so much reasonable doubt. To be fair, it actually seemed more like Chris Melton was on trial by the way that the prosecution was presenting the case. There was so much reasonable doubt. When he was found guilty, I was really shocked. However, locals seem to think that it's not surprising because Edrick is a black man and he had a criminal history already. And when you look at the political stuff surrounding the case, it just seems like to locals that it was obvious that they were going to end up convicting him.